I'm Jeremy Gold. I lead the global retail media business for Yahoo, so I'm thrilled to be here. Apologies in advance. I don't have a mellifluous French accent or a dignified British accent. You're just going to be stuck with my Baltimore accent that I've been trying to lose my entire adulthood. So bear with me. But I have Elizabeth and Jillian with me. We're going to talk to two global powerhouse companies, Marriott and Uber, and we're going to learn a little bit about what their plans are. So without further ado, why don't we get started? Elizabeth, I'm going to start with you. In addition to telling me a little bit about what your role is, could you talk about what you say would be the best part of your job and what gets you excited to wake up every morning?
Sure. So, of course, I have my team in the audience. So, of course, working with my team, that makes me happy. But then working with Yahoo and our partnership across the buy and sell side. So that's one of my favorite parts of the partnership.
Great. Jillian, how about yourself?
So I'm Jillian Kranz, head of programmatic at Uber. This one's easy for me because I joined the team at Uber only 3 months ago, which is actually meaning that I've been on the team longer than most. So it is a very new team at Uber that is responsible for figuring out what advertising means to our business, and it's just a really exciting time to be part of the group.
Great. Yeah, it's like dog years over there, I think,
exactly.
At this point. So my first question, I'm going to start with Marriott. There have been a growing number of companies building out media networks. Obviously, many of them are in the retail space. So Elizabeth, I'd love to hear from you. What was the impetus for Marriott to do this? And why does Marriott believe it's going to be successful? And how does it fit into the sort of larger corporate strategy of Marriott?
Yeah, that's a great question and a three-part question. So
3 parts. So, yeah.
I'll introduce myself. I'm Elizabeth Donovan, head of global ad revenue at Marriott International, leading the Marriott Media Network. Exciting times for us at Marriott. So about the Marriott Media Network, we are partnering with Yahoo to power our omni-channel strategy. So that's across our digital, in-room, on-property, digital screens. So we're really excited to grow this initiative with you. But one of our important things is to point out, we are a key player in the advertising ecosystem. So our scale, as well as combining the learnings and measurement from your team, but really aligning to our 30 portfolio brands, because each audience that we have across our portfolio reaches different type of, what you see in the Ritz-Carlton you won't necessarily see in the Courtyard.
And I imagine there's an addressability element to that as well.
Oh, absolutely. So that's also why we partnered with your team, and expanding into the advertising ecosystem will have a greater affinity to our brands, as well as our loyal consumers, because we want to be able to solve for that nuances of travel.
Mm-hmm. Now, Jillian, Uber hasn't made any announcements or anything, but I wonder, what's been happening behind the walls in terms of how your thinking is going around digital out-of-home.
So I guess before I kind of jump into the answer, I'll explain the way that we're thinking about whether advertising makes sense to be introduced across Uber. When most of you are thinking about Uber, you're probably thinking about the Rides app. We also have Uber Eats, Drizzly, Postmates, our car tops business, as well as our growing grocery and convenience delivery business. And the reason I mention this is because there's obviously a breadth of various businesses that we are responsible for. And the common thread across all of these is that people are either going somewhere or they're getting something. And at our core, we are not advertising businesses. These are not businesses that are relying on ads to produce revenue. And so when we're evaluating whether it makes sense for us to be introducing ads into the various Uber experiences, it really needs to be done without degradation of our core metrics. And we actually do have ads within a few of those services that I mentioned before already today. So within Uber Eats, we work with restaurant merchants to advertise within sponsored listings as well as offers, and that helps them to drive increased orders for those restaurants. but within car tops as well. So we have 3,500 digital car tops across the continental US, across 7 different metros. And so then the question becomes, do we introduce ads to our other surfaces? We talk a lot at Uber about this concept of like magical user experiences. And so it really aligns with this concept that like, if we are going to introduce ads across these different surfaces, we would do it in a way that is additive to those core experiences that they come to Uber for.
I love that idea of a value exchange with consumers. I think that's kind of a secret ingredient if companies are really going to maintain the trust of consumers when they introduce ads. So I'd love to hear that. But I'd also like to dig in a little bit more in terms of what successes have you been seeing with some of the areas that you just spoke about.
Yeah.
So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
So I guess like taking it a step farther, you can really think about all of those surfaces spanning across the full marketing funnel. So starting with upper funnel metrics, our car tops are driving really strong brand lift for advertisers. Retailers who are advertising on our digital car tops are achieving 40 times increased foot traffic. But when you move into sort of like those mid-funnel KPIs, that's where I see the potential for something like our in-rides experience living. These are people that are on the go. Like they're going to a restaurant, they're going to work, they're going to a grocery store. And when presented with an ad in that experience, they're spending over a minute with it. And the result is really strong performance for brand metrics. We see 3.5% click-through rates, for example. And then you get into the lower funnel from a more performance perspective. Of course, that's where our restaurant partners come to Uber to advertise within Eats, but you can imagine how we might be able to work with CPGs, for example, within our grocery and convenience delivery business as well. And so we are seeing strong leading indicators of performance, and just looking forward to continuing to kind of deliver upon these KPIs for marketers in the future.
It's great to hear. I mean, I think, the addressability that both companies bring to bear is something that has always been difficult, I think, for out-of-home. So it's exciting to see companies come into the space to be able to offer that. Now, Elizabeth, I'm going to turn to you for a second and ask how you see media networks fitting into the larger media landscape. So where do you feel Marriott sits within the larger sort of ecosystem in terms of bringing unique offerings and experiences for brands?
Yeah, absolutely. So the Marriott Media Network is obviously not a retail media network. We can truly focus on not only CPG, but our consumers are high intent travelers, spenders. They're planning to spend money, right? So we can touch them through multiple cross points where, I'm sorry. So we could help our consumers make smarter purchasing decisions.
Yep.
And really focus on not just working with CPG, but working with consumer brands like in the auto space, retail, entertainment, really helping solve for those nuances of travel, but really speaking to our consumer and helping them throughout their journey. So we're really customer focused.
No, it's great to hear. I mean, one thing that strikes me about my own experience when I go to a hotel is that, there are businesses around that hotel that depend on customers coming into a Marriott. So I imagine, I don't know how much you can share, but I imagine that's also part of the fertile landscape that you look at when you think about your advertising business.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know for myself, I'm a mom. I always forget something. So how great can it be when you come into one of our properties and you get an ad for, CVS and, there's one right down the block, or working with Uber and, making sure we get food delivered, or even if you're at one of our extended stays, where's our local grocery store, wine shop, which I'm not allowed to say that, but, really helping our consumers with their travel journey,
Sure.
especially when they're on property. And I think what's unique for Marriott is that, we have our guest room entertainment, which is a one-on-one experience.
Yep.
for consumers, brands to reach our consumers through a different array of audiences, as well as, digital screens. So I think that's going to be highly sought after.
Well, again, it gets back to that idea of a value exchange where, there's a benefit to the consumer when they're in your room that they can learn about things in the area. I think that's really compelling. Now, you're a mom who forgets things. My wife never seems to ever forget anything. I'm the one who always forgets stuff in my household. Jillian, so I don't know, I think, Uber's obviously much earlier along in your journey, but is there anything that you can share in terms of how you view, that consumer journey for someone who's getting an Uber ride and how that translates into some of these sort of value experiences?
Yeah, so I guess the best way to think about this is that across our various surfaces, we have the ability to reach audiences both online and offline. And so I think the holy grail and like where we're hopefully able to play in the future is really connecting, reaching these users through our various surfaces, but then also being able to attribute those marketing efforts to actual performance within the Uber environment. But it kind of goes back to that magical experience that I was mentioning earlier, and it's really ensuring that we're providing value to the users, whether they're in a car or whether they are on their couch ordering dinner, wherever they might be, and making sure that even if they weren't expecting these ads, that they're actually something that they would benefit from, and maybe they didn't even realize that they wanted. And so that's what we're really kind of striving for.
Helping consumers make smarter purchase decisions. So I definitely agree with that.
Now, I know we're kind of short on time. I'll just throw this out, and if you're not comfortable answering, that's totally fine. But it occurs to me that throughout this process, the other thing that both of you can bring to the table is this idea around measurement. And, if companies choose to run ads with you, you have this ability to kind of close that loop. Is that something you were able to touch on at all? I know we didn't talk about that in some of the briefs, but...
Well, that's why we partnered with Yahoo.
I did not expect you to say that, but thank you for saying it.
On our end, I'd say it's still early days for us. That's definitely what we see as an opportunity for Uber, and if we're able to sort of capitalize on that, which hopefully we'd be able to, it's something that we're looking toward, but nothing to share on it today.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to both of you. Thank you so much for joining me up on stage today. And we're going to hang around for a little bit afterwards if anyone wants to come by and ask us some questions or